Welcome to SVG-TV News for Wednesday, August 3rd, 2022. I am Yvette Bowens with the details. Testing and surveillance are key in the fight against the monkeypox virus. This comes from Acting Chief Medical Officer Dr. Roger Duncan, who says he is confident the local health system can adequately handle testing for the virus. Dr. Duncan was speaking during a health forum held on August 2nd to update the nation on measures in place to detect and contain a possible spread of the disease. Recently, the World Health Organization's Director General declared the global monkeypox outbreak a public health emergency. So far, there are over 25,000 confirmed cases of monkeypox globally. There are currently no confirmed cases detected here. Dr. Duncan says SVG currently has the capacity for around 400 tests.
We need to, if we're going to win this, if we're going to be able to minimize the impact on the healthcare system, what Shelley spoke about, or if we're going to minimize the impact on individual and population and community health, we're going to have to be able to early detect any monkeypox activity and contain it. So the first pillar of this is to have access to safe, reliable, sustainable testing for monkeypox. And I mean, again, based on everything that we've been doing for COVID-19, we're able to access the ability to test. I am really pleased in my conversations with the Chief Laboratory Technologist, Mr. Elliot Samuel, and who has indicated that we are currently capable to do approximately 400 monkeypox tests in country today, which means that if samples are collected today, that they could be processed in 24 hours and we'll have a result. And that's important. Although we have access to these tests, we're also beginning conversations with partners in the region, as well as international partners. How could we access further testing? So that is going to be important.
The medical health officer also says the measures are in place to ensure public health. He calls on all to adopt healthy lifestyles and better health-seeking behaviors.
So this is what we really need people to do. So you're provided with the information, of course. The information must spur you into some sort of action. At the basis of going forward, we need every single citizen to begin to think about my own risk for monkeypox, what I could do to reduce that individual risk to myself, and if I've been exposed to monkeypox, what I could do. So this would require you have some general better health-seeking behavior, that you make conscious decisions about your health and well-being and what you're going to do. And Shelley made it clear in terms of the people who are great at risk for worse outcomes from these infectious diseases, COVID-19 and monkeypox being no different. People who are elderly, people with underlying chronic conditions, diabetes, heart disease, kidney disease, and so forth. And so on one hand, we need to be able to build our healthy cells, which is promoting healthy lifestyles, well-being, which include the issues of diet, rest, exercise, and so forth. And at the same time, being able to have our health-seeking behavior, one, that would accommodate the reduced or mitigated spread of monkeypox within the population.
Symptoms of the monkeypox virus include extreme exhaustion, rashes that start in the face, that spread to the hands, then to the rest of the body, fever, headaches, and swollen lymph nodes. The rash can look like pimples or blisters and may be painful or itchy. The disease is spread from person to person through direct contact with the infectious rash, scabs, or bodily fluids. It can also be transmitted through respiratory secretions during prolonged face-to-face contact or during intimate physical contact, such as hugging, kissing, or sexual intercourse. Medical doctor for Pembroke Health District, Dr. Alicia Bonady, explains there is currently no specific treatment for the virus.
It is what we call a self-limiting disease, which means that these symptoms are going to resolve on their own. We can, of course, treat the person symptomatically with over-the-counter medication. So if the person is coming with a fever, we can give them some antipyretics, acetaminophen, Panadols. For the rash, we might want to treat them with some topical steroids, that sort of thing. So it's mainly going to be over-the-counter medication. Of note, most of these cases are going to be mild, and once there are mild cases, and once we deem that you have a home where you can be isolated at home, so the home is well set up where you can get your meals, drinks, and be separate from the rest of your family members, majority of these cases would have to isolate at home. On the rare occasions where we might have in-hospital care, They may be treated with antivirals, of course, in persons who we know are at high risk or those at risk of becoming severely ill. But majority of these cases will be treated, will be isolated at home and treated with over-the-counter medication. So remember, no specific treatment for the monkeypox virus. There are, however, some vaccines. And the most recent one I read about is called the Genius vaccine. And this was adopted in 2019 by the FDA, Food and Drug Administration.
Infectious disease specialist Dr. Jose Davy provides tips on self-care and home treatment for persons infected with monkeypox.
If possible, isolate the patient in a single room with its own bathroom. That's if possible. Dedicate one person from the household to care for this person. Personal protective equipment. We probably have heard a lot about this. Do use your mask, your face mask, and these are to be worn covering your mouth and your nose. I can be without one because no one's next to me. Gloves, do use your gloves. Use the gloves for caring for persons with the patient and for removing linens, anything that you're going to touch that touch the patient. Please use gloves to deal with that. If you have a plastic apron, that might be very good use at this point. Cleaning. Cleaning is very important, if not one of the most important steps. Remember to clean high-touch surfaces, such as doorknobs, showers, toilets, and countertops.
Global increases in the prices of oil are affecting local fishing operations, with Fisherfolk warning of possible increase in fish prices. This from fisherman and president of the National Fisherfolk Cooperative, Winsbert Harry, in an interview with SVG-TV News. Harry is appealing to the government of St. Vincent and the Grenadines to assist the fisherfolk, particularly with fuel for their vessels.
And this increase in gasoline is going to carry a very heavy burden on the fisherfolks. After moving from Rose Place and now you're gone into Lomans Bay, and then you see the price of gas is reaching out of reach. And I think that the authorities need to see how they could have a conversation with the national organization, which is the NFO, to see how we can assist fisherfolks in terms of the price of gas, because I think the gas going to close down some of our fishing operation, because to sell a pound of fish right now for $8 and $10 a pound, and you have to almost look for another $9 to buy gas. I think it's really going to be too much on the fishermen. We really need this assistance, because if we do not get this assistance, it's sorry to say that Vincentians will have to pay more for fish when they come to the Kingston fish market, because the fisher folks will be asking more for the fish, because we cannot operate at a loss. Because if you operate in these boats, it costs us almost $500 to $600 a day in just gasoline, and if we add oil to it, it might cost another $120. So I'm appealing for some assistance from the authorities to see how we can look at either rebate, fuel concession, and gas to the fisher folks, that the nation could eat fish.
Harry emphasizes that the fisherfolk in SVG are not prepared to settle for a loss with their operations.
We know there's a high demand for fish now in St. Vincent and the Grenadines. We have companies coming to our shows, we local need fish, but then we have this fleet expansion program. But if the fisher folks cannot meet the expense of gas, and I think that's going to be the killer, how can we meet some of these demands? So I'm asking generously to the authorities if they could have a conversation with the national fisher folks to see how they could come up with ideas in terms of making life easy for the fisher folks concerning fuel, because I think this fuel will really drive fish to a price that I think not even the companies will want to buy from the local fishermen, and not even the locals will want to buy the fish, because the price of fish will be too expensive for persons to consume. And I think that you're looking for good proteins and good fish, you need to have fish within your system. So I think that we really have to see how we could come and get the assistance to the fisher folks in terms of the price of gas. I think the price of gas is going to affect the industry in terms of how we fish and how we go forward in providing for the economy and even for these foreign companies.
Public servants who were dismissed last year for refusing to comply with government's COVID-19 vaccine mandate are being urged to reapply for their jobs. This plea comes from Prime Minister Dr. Ralph Gonsalves while speaking on NBC Radio's Face-to-Face program today. Just last week, PM Gonsalves made the announcement that the COVID-19 vaccine would no longer be required for staff at educational institutions. The decision was made at the cabinet level on the advice of the Chief Medical Officer. PM Gonsalves urges dismissed public servants, particularly teachers, to not pay attention to suggestions coming from union heads telling them to refuse the government's offer.
In them, and in particular the teachers, but others too, asking the teachers to reply, don't pay any attention to trade union bureaucrats who have their jobs and who everything all right with them. They're telling you don't re-employ, don't seek to get employment again. Try and get your employment there. And do the testing in accordance with the testing regime, which I believe that a release is coming out today because Roger Duncan, as the acting Chief Medical Officer, Dr. Duncan, gave advice on it yesterday, and I spoke with him, got clarifications, and they will be put in writing. There's going to be a release on everything, properly structured. I saw the release yesterday evening before I left office late. And please, apply back to get your job.
The Prime Minister took issue with the claim made by officials of the union that the invitation to reapply was an insult. He adds that the government is seeking to secure COVID-19 testing kits for teaching staff who will be required to test every week.
Those who have abandoned their job, and in particular to the teachers, whom the teachers union leadership I saw yesterday in the news, that one of them said that it's an insult and teachers mustn't reapply. How could it be an insult if you offer back a job? But we are trying to see if we can get tests free.
Okay.
So that afterwards, persons wouldn't have to pay for them.
As Prime Minister Dr. Ralph Gonsalves embarks on an official state visit to Taiwan, he made a call to the Republic of China to desist from conducting military exercises, which he says are designed to intimidate the people of Taiwan. China's military has said it will conduct a series of live fire drills beginning on Thursday. The Chinese state media provided coordinates for 6 spots of sea surrounding Taiwan, 3 of which overlap with areas that Taiwan says are a part of its territorial waters. PM Gonsalves says the challenges between the two nations should be settled peacefully.
1949, between mainland China and Taiwan. Both peoples of Taiwan and of mainland China are part of the Chinese civilization. But a civilization can have different political expressions, and there are different legitimate political expressions of the Chinese civilization finding themselves in the People's Republic of China and the Republic of China on Taiwan. And whatever the challenge, the contradictions, the difficulties, the problems between those two peoples in those two territories of the same civilization, it is for them to sort out their problems peacefully.
Commenting on the recent visit to Taiwan by the U.S. Speaker of the House of Representatives, Nancy Pelosi, PM Gonsalves describes China's response to the visit as excessive.
It does nothing for world peace. It does nothing for peace against the Taiwan Straits. It does nothing for the reconciliation of peoples in the same civilization with separate legitimate political expressions. Does nothing to aid any resolution of any conflict. In fact, it exacerbates the problems. It makes the problems worse. And the spillover effect on the rest of the world, given all the turmoil already in the world, in the global political system, in the global economy, exacerbated already by the war in Ukraine, and now worsening tensions across the Taiwan Straits, they affect people not just directly within the Chinese civilization, but they affect countries as far away as St. Vincent and the Grenadines.
PM Gonzalez, along with an official delegation, which includes Permanent Secretary in the Office of the Prime Minister, Minister of National Mobilization, and the Taiwanese Ambassador to SVG, will be visiting Taiwan for 1 week. Graduate teacher and head of department at the Georgetown Secondary School, Madonna Peters, is calling for changes to be made to the history curriculum, which would make lessons in Vincentian history compulsory. Her comments on amendments to the syllabus were made while appearing as a guest on SVG-TV's Viewpoint program on the topic, The Significance of Celebrating Emancipation Day. St. Vincent and the Grenadines kicked off month-long emancipation celebrations last Friday with a parade, rally, and cultural exhibition in Kingstown. Community groups also staged activities around the island on August 1st. Peters says it is critical that students be exposed to local history. In this way, she believes that there will be more involvement by the public in emancipation celebrations.
Love to see history in every secondary school. I might not go so far as to say CXC, but at least up to Form 3, that persons are exposed to history. We know what history can do. We are hearing so many things about critical thinking, our students, the universities complaining, college complaining, secondary school complaints, and we know that history brings about that critical thinking because we weren't living in the past. We can look at different perspectives and draw our own conclusions. So it's very good for that. It's also good for the students to have an appreciation of their history. And that's why I say Form 1, 2, and 3, because there you can play with the curriculum. You're not forced to study a specific set of subjects as you would do in a specific set of topics as you would do for CSEC. You can tailor it to suit your local history. And that would be a big benefit for students to understand emancipation. And then we can start to move forward and probably would have better celebrations, we have better events once the students are aware of the local history.
History enthusiast Ronnie Daniel also backed the call for the changes to the local curriculum. Daniel says there needs to be a national conversation which explores the meaning of emancipation.
There are several levels. We have to, there has to be, in my mind, a national movement in terms of a national consciousness, if you want, about who we are. I know we have conversations every year, but the conversations are episodic. They are not national. And of course, the challenge in it right now is that you have a weakened civil society. And so outside of what we are attempting to do here, outside of what the Rastafarian community attempts to do and the Ministry of Culture, and one or two other organizations, there isn't, in my mind, a national movement. And I don't know where well, I have a sense of where we need to start, but I think this brings me to the last question for consideration this evening, that we have to start with little things. History has to be something that is mandatory. At least we could decide up to Form 5 or Form 6, but that we have to start with those little things.
42 residents from the red and orange volcanic zones have received entry-level certification in electrical installation. This achievement was made possible through a collaborative effort by the Rotary Clubs of St. Vincent and the Grenadines and the St. Vincent and the Grenadines Community College. The residents who completed the 15-week course at the SVG-CC graduated at the end of July in a ceremony held at the college's Villa campus. The Rotary Clubs of St. Vincent provided approximately 50,000 EC dollars in funding to facilitate the cohort's studies as part of the club's April 2021 volcanic eruption response. In addition to their certification, all graduates received electrical installation toolkits. During the ceremony, Deputy Chief Education Officer Rotarian Dixon Findley encouraged the group to pay it forward, reminding them of the investment made into their education and urging them to share their knowledge with others in their communities. The Rotary Clubs of St. Vincent have an established partnership with the SVG-CC, which has seen the clubs fund thousands of dollars into the education of many Vincentians through the college.